Matt glanced at the alarm clock ticking softly on his bedside table. It was far too early to be awake, especially for a Thursday morning during the first week of his summer vacation. He had finished a moderately successful first year at university, yet despite the distractions of campus life, he felt a restless energy that he couldn't quite shake. Before retiring the previous night, his parents had reminded him of the schedule. Miranda, their housekeeper, would be coming in. They were heading out for a few hours to an art exhibition, leaving the house empty save for Matt and the cleaning lady. "Be polite and let Miranda get on with her work," his mother had instructed. "She'll want to clean your room, so I hope you'll be up by then." Matt had promised to try, but now, lying in the warmth of his duvet, he simply murmured to himself, "A few minutes more." His thoughts drifted to Miranda. Finding a reliable, vetted housekeeper had been a struggle for his parents, but they had struck gold with her. She was a woman in her early 40s, possessing a captivating accent and a dusky, curvaceous beauty that Matt had noticed from day one. Lying there, thinking of how she looked in her work smock, Matt felt a familiar heat rising. The morning air was still, and his imagination began to run wild. He shifted restlessly, the duvet only half covering him as he sought to relieve the sudden tension in his body. He was so lost in the sensation, eyes closed and breathing heavy, that he didn't hear the door handle turn. "Ea Mateo, qua haces?" The voice froze him. Miranda stood in the doorway. Matt's eyes snapped open. He scrambled to pull the duvet up, his face burning with mortification. He had been completely exposed, caught in a very private moment. I didn't hear you come in," he stammered, pulling the sheet up to his chest. "I know that, Mateo." Miranda didn't look away. Instead, a knowing, heavy smile played on her lips. She set down her bucket of cleaning supplies and the dust cloth, stepping slowly into the room. The air suddenly felt thick, charged with an unspoken electricity. "My Andres, he does not have permission to be here in England yet," she said softly, her voice dropping an octave. "So, sometimes I miss this. I see you, and I understand." "I wish you hadn't seen me," he muttered, unable to meet her gaze, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Come a tea," she soothed, walking closer until she stood right beside the bed. "It is done now." She reached out, placing a hand on his stomach over the sheet. Even through the fabric, her touch was electric. Matt was glad he was wearing a t-shirt, or the contact of her skin on his might have overwhelmed him completely. "From what I saw," she whispered, her eyes dark and appreciative, "you are a very healthy young man. Very impressive." The compliment, coming from her, made his head spin. The shame evaporated, replaced by a surge of emboldened desire. "May I?" she asked, her voice barely a breath. Matt looked at her. Her touch, her scent, the way she looked at him, it wound his internal clock too tight to say no. "Yes, go on then, Miranda." He shifted, allowing the duvet to fall away. This was it, an opportunity he had only dreamed of. She wasn't a classic beauty, perhaps, but in this moment, with her eyes devouring him, she was the most desirable woman in the world. "Ea qua fuerte," she groaned softly, her hands moving with experience and confidence. She began to stroke him, her touch firm yet tender, sending shivers through his entire frame. "Enjoy it, Mateo." "I am," he gasped, his head falling back against the pillow. Her hands were working magic, exploring him in ways he had never experienced. She leaned in, her dark hair brushing against his skin. "May I taste you?" His answer was to tangle his fingers in her silky black hair. He didn't care about anything else, the time, his parents, the propriety. He just wanted this. "Go on, Miranda, please." She lowered her head. The sensation of her warmth enveloping him was exquisite. Matt gripped the sheets, his hips bucking involuntarily as she set a rhythm that threatened to undo him completely. The friction, the heat, the wetness, it was a sensory overload. Sensing his desperation, Miranda paused and stood up. Without a word, she began to undo the buttons of her tunic. Matt watched, mesmerized, as she stripped down to her modest lingerie. Her body was lush and soft, a landscape of curves that invited his touch. "Your first time, yes?" she asked, seeing the awe in his eyes. "Yes," he admitted breathlessly. "Then let me show you." She moved back to the bed, unhooking her bra and letting it fall. Matt pulled her down beside him, his mouth immediately finding her skin, exploring the softness of her curves. He kissed her deeply, his hands roaming over her body, learning the difference between fantasy and the reality of a mature woman. "I will show you everything, Mateo," she soothed, guiding his hands. "Do not worry." Miranda moved with purpose, positioning herself. "Protection, do you have it?" "Yes," he gasped, reaching for the nightstand drawer where he had stashed a box just days ago. With trembling hands, he prepared himself, stealing a glance at the door to ensure it was locked. "Ven, come here," she whispered. She guided him, her hands on his hips. The moment he entered her, Matt let out a shaky breath. The feeling of being sheathed in her warmth was indescribable, tight, wet, and all-consuming. "Slowly," she coached him, "just feel it first." Instinct took over. He began to move, finding a rhythm that was ancient and intuitive. Miranda responded, her body arching to meet his, her nails digging into his shoulders. The sound of their breathing and the soft creak of the bed filled the room. "See, Anda, just like that," she urged him on, her voice ragged. Matt felt a power he didn't know he possessed. He wasn't just a student anymore. He was a man learning the art of pleasure from a willing teacher. He leaned over her, kissing her deeply, swallowing her moans as the tempo increased. The friction built, a rising tide of sensation that neither of them could hold back. "Mateo, I'm close," she cried out. Her words pushed him over the edge. The pleasure peaked, crashing over him like a wave. He shuddered violently, pouring everything he had into the moment, his body convulsing in a release so intense it left him seeing stars. Miranda clung to him, riding out her own waves of satisfaction, her cries muffled against his neck. For a long time, the only sound was their ragged breathing, as the world slowly came back into focus. "That was so good," Matt whispered, his voice trembling. "You taught me, quickly." "See, and you are a fast learner," she smiled, smoothing the hair back from his forehead. Reluctantly, she eased away from him. "I have to go back to work." "Are you sure?" Matt asked, watching her stand up. She looked beautifully disheveled, her skin glowing, her hair wild. "No, I am not sure," she laughed softly, leaning down to give him one last, lingering kiss. Her body brushed against his, reigniting a spark even in his exhausted state. "But it will be better next time, if your parents go out again." "I hope that happens soon, Miranda." He watched her gather her clothes and head to the bathroom to freshen up. When she returned, fully dressed in her work uniform, she looked like the housekeeper again, but Matt knew better. "No more, Mateo," she teased, seeing the look in his eyes. "Go have your breakfast. I have a house to clean." She slipped out the door, leaving Matt alone in the tangled sheets. He lay back, a sly grin spreading across his face. He had lost his virginity to the housekeeper, and a whole new world of education had just begun. All he could think about now was when the next lesson would be.